What if we could see wasn't necessarily reality? The sky was in the sea, and the sea was in the sky where the sun should be. Funny little world in my mixed up brain, drinking too much biscuit and Friday games. Weekend's coming up in a couple of days, I'm gonna get fucked up in so many ways. What if we could see wasn't necessarily reality? The sky was in the sea, and the sea was in the sky where the sun should be. Come on! Rock up to the mates and there's powder on the table, but my nose is so damn clogged and I don't know if I'm able to have another bump, so I'll leave a line for later. Give the boys a fucking wink and say get Ada Nader. But Nader's sitting in the chair, the cracky in his hand, talking way too fast and I can't understand him. What if we should see wasn't necessarily reality? The sky was in the sea, and the sea was in the sky where the sun should be. Come on! Rock up to the pub, left the mates behind, smoked a couple of cones cause I thought I'd won. Sexy in the corner in peripheral view, didn't need to speak to tell me what to do. Bounce and drags me out, throws me down the stairs, and I'm so fucking mounted that I don't care. What if we could see wasn't necessarily reality? The sky was in the sea, and the sea was in the sky where the sun should be. Come on! What if we could see it wasn't necessarily reality? The sky was in the sea, and the sea was in the sky where the sun should fucking be.
One, two, three.
Did you see the frightened ones? Did you hear the falling bombs? Did you ever wonder why we had to run for shelter when the promise of a brave new world unfurled beneath the blue sky? Did you see the frightened ones? Did you hear the falling bombs? Flames are long gone, but the pain lingers on. Goodbye, blue sky. Goodbye, blue sky. Goodbye. Goodbye.
to see ya, how you been? Your show started by now. I think I'll settle in. No hesitation since you're stuck in high, and now my interest is thin. Continue on, let me hear the part. Conviction strong, when all race you start. Step closer to me, make sure I can see you're the authority on any task. I'm listening. Tell me about your troubles and all the things that irritate you. I'm looking forward, I can't wait to hear all about your chips and how your shoulders are breaking. 'Cause my life lacks that joy and thrill of your grievances. Well, listening is a skill. Words are hazardous. Loud mouth and iron-willed. A dim simplicity dictates that I'm still listening. I've been here too long. The conversation peaked where you almost choked on your drink. I've been here too long, listening to you dribble on. I'm listening, so please go on.
If I see you videotaping this movie, Satan will rain down your throat with hard acid, install your testicles and turn your gut into snakes.
And that broke it. Sorry about that. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Citrus Questions. I am your host, Ichabod, and, of course, I am here with our guest, Trucker, and at some point, Bridges is going to come in. I can very much hear myself. Okay, so basically we're going to be talking about a just you two's like banter back and forth, the whole contention you guys have with each other, and a question of communism, is it inherently evil?
I believe it is.
Yeah. So why don't you give me a rundown of your contention in this, just as we're waiting for Bridges to come in?
Well, the issue arose because we were discussing types of, I don't remember exactly, but basically communism and communist and political ideologies. And I outright said, and I maintain to this day, that I don't like communists, never will. I just think they're inherently bad people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think you can be a good person and be a communist. You're either a bad person and a communist, or a dumb person and a communist.
Okay, so
I don't think there's any middle ground there to be had.
Yeah, which is understandable. Communism's been responsible for millions of deaths.
You actually want to know something really interesting?
What's up?
Communism has been responsible for around 100 million to 200 million. Hard numbers are exact. Hard numbers are hard to get because of how ridiculously well the communists have destroyed their files on this kind of stuff. But anyway, 100 million to 200 million murders, right?
Yeah.
The approximate number most people throw around is 170 million.
Mm-hmm.
Up until the 1900s, the total number of deaths through war is about 180 million, 190 million approximately.
Mm-hmm.
Communists have been responsible for about as many murders as throughout all history before 1900, and they did that in a span of less than 100 years.
Yeah, that's actually mildly terrifying in its own aspect.
Right. It's very terrifying.
So
the fact
basically,
that one ideology can do that.
Yeah. Well, basically, how the format here is going to work is, you guys will each talk about your contentions with each other, and then, I'll ask a few questions to keep you guys, like on topic or move to a different particular topic, and then at the end, we'll figure out if this is a handshaking scenario or a spit in the face scenario.
Right. Oh, yeah. I got a little bit off topic there, but the thing was that she was not willing to say that communism is inherently evil, and I don't like that somebody would do that. To me, I know it sounds stupid and stuff, but that starts to smell of communist sympathies. And the other part is... Right, and the other part is she was trying to say that, well, what if a small community wants to be communist? And I don't think by the very definition of communism as laid out by Karl Marx, a small community can be communist. It has to be nation or worldwide.
Uh-huh.
So any attempt to conflate the two is either communist apologetics or ignorance.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting on Bridges to show, let's take a couple of things from the chat. Total Madness says, my issue is communist is equal to the application of Marxism that gave us Lenin, Stalin, Mao Zedong. Socialism is another application of it, but it seems ineffectual and very nice on paper.
Oh, well, the problem is the math is great. Everything else is terrible.
Yeah, it's the
what math is great?
Adding the human element. Hey, there she is.
Sorry about that. Hangouts kept crashing on me.
Hey, now
communist math is great, but application is terrible.
So, we've heard Trucker's basic contention. So, what's the basic contention you have?
I actually haven't completely because of I wasn't able to listen at the same time as trying to deal with Hangouts.
Oh, okay. We can repeat it. It's
but
not a big deal if that's all right.
Yeah, the
Trucker.
TLDR version, so that the other people aren't. Sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to frustrate you, Trucker.
No, it's my fault.
Thank you, Red, in the chat. Thank you for that. Anyway.
I burped.
Okay, so Trucker, do you mind going a basic TLDR of what you were saying?
I mean, it's probably the same
basically that what it sounded like is you're not willing to separate certain ideologies from communism and saying that they are communist.
Well,
and to me, anything that starts to sound like that seems to me to be communist apologetics, and I don't put up with that.
Okay. So, Burgess, what's your contention?
Hang on a second. I'm trying to adjust headsets now because I realized I was using the wrong mic.
That's okay.
She has a bunch of crappy mics.
I really do.
After the
both
show's
of them
over-
in different respects.
After the
Anyway.
show's over, I will send you a link to a really good headset. Plugs into the USB, works amazing, and it glows, so it's easy to find.
See, the
Is it
problem
cheap?
is, well, that's
Yes.
problem one. Problem two is that I actually can't stream from my laptop at all. I'm on very old tech. So I'm actually using my phone.
Okay.
I'm always using my phone, every video and everything I've ever done.
Well, yes, but you're usually trucking at the time.
This is true. I have edited more than a few videos while driving a semi.
Edited? Oh, dear.
Hey, it's better than masturbating.
I would hope you wouldn't be doing that while driving. Anyway,
Hope you wouldn't be
Most of the
doing that
time.
on the show, for God's sake.
I mean, the thing is, though, by saying,
Well, if I
okay.
mute myself.
All right. Well,
Please.
the topic that, yeah. I mean, the thing is as far as the actual point by point on the communism thing is concerned, I mean, that's to completely dismiss the entire existence of anarcho-communists, which I am not one of, but I've been very open with you about the fact that, yes, I know people in Antifa. I wish that I did not, but I do. And I also know people in
probably
the
terrible
alt-right.
people.
That doesn't make me alt-right. And the thing is, where all of this boils down to for me, I mean, let me get back to my computer just a second here. Because I actually did write some of this down to try to...
Yeah, that's fine. Take your time.
I also clicked the wrong link for some reason, in terms of getting to this specific stream for some reason. In order to see the chat, sorry.
Oh, no.
Why is this not coming up?
I never watched the chat. It's probably a dick move on my part, but whatever.
I don't speak vodka. That's a pretty good line.
I'm sorry, I don't speak vodka.
Hey, it's not
found
vodka,
it.
it's Miller.
Oh, that's weird. I was subscribed to you last night, Ichabod, and it's like now I'm not. So I fixed that.
It's okay. We'll probably get a prompt for it though. Like that shit pops up with this. Maybe not on this one. Now that I think about it, I haven't added.
Anyway,
I haven't added.
By the way,
So-
send me your channel. And does Minty have a channel?
She does. Yeah, I'd have to drag it up. I just forgot that I forgot a bunch of shit that I'm supposed to have on here, but I don't. So currently the point of contention is that you believe that he's not taking into account quite a bit of
well, I
quite
mean,
a bit, and his contention is that you don't take into account other things. So
Well, I wouldn't
Well,
say
he
that
seems
much.
to-
My contention is that, look, I understand that the world isn't black and white, but I do believe certain things are black and white. And if you're not willing to call black and white, then I'm going to have serious suspicions about your motivations for why
Okay.
not willing to do that.
Well, here's the thing, Trucker. In terms of your suspicions about my motivations, I don't know why you're suspicious of my motivations when you've known them all along. And I'm going to try to lay them out now, because I did sort of try to prepare a bit of a statement. It's kind of haphazard because I threw it together in a panic in the last 15 minutes. Because
I never
was trying to
prepare.
calm myself down.
I'm either drunk or stupid.
I'm a
But
raccoon.
it's going to echo some of what's on my channel, which I need to get back to, really. I know I haven't posted anything since actually the cringe miss videos.
I haven't posted in months.
Yeah, I haven't posted in almost as long as you. The last time I posted was actually to apologize for you not posting.
My apologies.
So I started my channel, as Trucker knows, because I've been multiple religions and political parties. Along the way, I've made friends of very different opinions. As I said in my channel trailer, the point of my channel is to look at the problems we face and the things that divide us, and look for actual steps towards solutions, as well as long-term goals and things that can bring us together across these seemingly impossible ideological distances. So yeah, Trucker is right-wing. I am admittedly left-wing, but I'm not a communist. I am to the right of Bernie Sanders, but I'm very much to the left of people like Hillary Clinton. I'm in the bottom left of the political spectrum test. Hillary Clinton's actually technically in the top right of the political spectrum test, as weird as it sounds. But not to focus too much on that, because my OCD loves things like the political spectrum test. And if you want something better, I'll happily take the politiscales test live right here on this, if it comes to that, if you want me to. I am willing to do that because I've never taken that test. I know, but it can bring up some interesting topics. So I'd be happy to do that. But here's the thing. I do, however, also have friends who identify as anarcho-communists, just like Trucker identifies as right-wing. And here's the thing. I put myself easily in other people's shoes. That's part of why I'm friends with such a wide variety of people, and it's also why I can argue about faiths and political positions I've never held, such as anarcho-communism on the political side, or Santeria and Hinduism as examples on the religious one, at least partially as sympathetically as positions I've actually held in the past. If you wanted me to, I could flip a switch right now and argue as a center-left hardcore Catholic and steel man at 100%. I could then immediately argue like a Green Party Wiccan or a fundamentalist Baptist or libertarian Taoist. I can sit here and argue for things I disagree with at this point in time. Maybe I agreed with them in my past, maybe I've never agreed with them, but I can argue on their behalf like any good debater. I'm not sure if Trucker could. My mom always said I argue like a Jesuit, always find the exceptions, but the fact is, as it says on my Twitter, your enemies are not demons, but human beings like yourself. I have friends from all of these different perspectives that have been a part of me, as well as from walks of life that I have never been. I am, as Shoeonhead would put it, anti-punching people I disagree with in the face. Quite the contrary. Point me at a U.S. congressperson I disagree with and loathe most, and frankly, I would probably be willing to take a bullet for them. That goes even more so for my friends. The fact is, I care about Trucker and would actually take a bullet for you, sir. But you're apparently convinced that because I'd also do the same for my friends who are commies, then that makes me a commie. I'm in seminary, and while I'm a pantheist right now, my background is extremely religious and extremely spiritual, and very much mysticism-based and interfaith. I don't just live that when it's easy. I actually do the very, very hard work of trying to live my life from the core of my being. And sometimes I lose sight of that, especially when the material struggles in my life get very, very difficult at times. I mean, I've been homeless before. And, you know, sometimes that's integrated and plays an interesting role in all of that. And sometimes it doesn't. But that is who I am. I mean, and I'm sorry if that makes me soft, and if you see that softness as a weakness, or if you see my willingness to trust people and reach out to them as some sort of naivete, but I don't view pretty much anyone as all evil. I'm like the opposite of my fundamentalist upbringing, where my mother thinks that the entire world is evil and corrupt. I actually look for the good. And, you know, you can say that that's bad all you want, but to put it back in Christian terms, even though I don't really identify in that camp much anymore, but to put it back in those terms, it's very easy to preach crucifixion. Everyone understands suffering and death. The part everyone doubts happened is the resurrection. because people don't like to believe in hope. They think it's a fairy tale. And maybe you can call me naive, maybe you can call me ignorant, whatever with that. But the fact is that when it comes to other human beings, I am willing to go out and put myself on the shrapnel battlefield between the right and left wing, between the atheists and the religious, between whatever group you consider an other. And I am willing to take the hit in order to protect people I love and care about. That is who I am, and that is the core of my being.
All right, are you done?
Yep.
I just wanted to check because that was long.
Well, that wasn't even just reading. That last bit was actually just me speaking from the heart.
All right, well, let me say this much. I make no bones about it. I am right wing. I'm a very much a conservative person. You'll very rarely find people who are right wing that I disagree with. I like Ben Shapiro. I like Milo Yiannopoulos. I can't remember his name. Has that radio show. Always smokes cigars.
You're thinking of Crowder?
Steven Crowder or Gavin McGinnis?
Well, I like Steven Crowder, but no, neither of those. Well, I like both of those. But no, the old school one, the really old school one.
Oh, Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, I like Rush Limbaugh. I like Bill O'Reilly. You know, I like these people. These are the kind of people I identify with, and I've identified with since I was 12 years old. I was never a liberal.
I was raised on Rush Limbaugh when I was 8, but
right. No, the thing is, people like to say, "Oh, you're a liberal when you're young." I was never a liberal. Not once in my life have I ever identified with the left wing.
See, I was actually a Republican until around when I was 17. So
Right. Wait. Let me
I'm
finish.
like the opposite.
Okay. Wait.
I was, yeah.
Wait. And I've always found liberals to be massive liars, racist, and downright terrible people. Honest truth. I've never, and I don't mean liberals like classical liberals. I mean modern, toe-the-line party Democrats. Nancy Pelosi. I think she's a horrible person. She walked in line with people like NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, which teaches you how to get away with raping little boys. I'm not kidding. She walked in a parade with them. Okay, there are certain
I'm surprised
people.
it was them and not the NAACP. Are you sure you're not confusing the two?
Nope.
Okay.
I know for a fact.
I just had to
I also think the NAACP is a detriment to the black community. But anyway, that's neither here
I
nor
was still
there.
just checking.
But, and some people find it contradictory. I mostly identify culturally as Hispanic. It's where I grew up. My stepmom is Mexican as fuck. All of my friends are super Mexican. You know, it's just the kind of people I grew up around.
The
It's
best
what my culture is.
Mexicans ever.
Huh?
The best Mexicans.
Right. But it's what I identify as culturally, and I'm also not attracted to white women. I don't think they have as nice of asses, and I think their culture is garbage. Some people find that contradictory to my political beliefs. I don't think it is. I think it's silly to think it is. But here's the thing. I have never once in my life voted Democrat. While there are Republicans I won't vote for, I will never in my life, and I can say this for sure, vote for a Democrat. Won't do it. I think they're all terrible people. The people that vote Democrat, I don't think they're terrible people. I think the politicians themselves are inherently bad people, though. When it comes to certain things, okay, like communism, I think it's a terrible thing inherently. I don't think any form of communism works. And I think that Karl Marx laid out very clear lines for what communism is. Him and Frederick Engels
in
literally
his
wrote
opinion
the book
of
on
it. I mean, on its
Having
status
literally
form,
created the definition of it, I think it's pretty good
I
example
don't
to
think
go
he
by.
did, though. I mean,
Hang
there's
on, Bridges. Hang on.
Okay.
We let you talk for a
bridge,
while.
not bridges, not bridges.
Bridge.
Just
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
But anyway, let's let Trucker
Okay. All right.
for a while.
I
We let
do
you
believe
talk
there
for a
are
while.
very, I do believe if you look at the history and the definitions of things, there are very clear lines between things like communism, communalism, capitalism with a strong safety net like what we have in most, I guess, Middle or Eastern European nations like Sweden. Those aren't socialist or communist. Those are capitalists with a strong safety net for their people. All right?
Hmm.
And they themselves said it, so you can't tout them out. And I even agree with a certain extent to Gandhi's type of government, which was small, localized communities that were heavily capitalist with a strong base of safety nets and charity done of free will by the public. I myself do not identify as a Christian. I probably never will. But I do love the Christian religion in that it talks about certain things like charity and general kindness. A good Christian is charitable and good to their community. I think that's also what a good human is. And I just got to say this much. Anybody that tries to say the state can do that kind of stuff, or that a group of people that essentially act as the state, because let's be honest, any group of people get together and start demanding that the community acts this way, is the government. It is. By the very definition of government, it becomes the government, whether it tries to claim it is or isn't. And therefore, I don't think the state is a good way to do that. The moment the state gets involved, people get murdered.
Except,
Anyway, that's all I have to say.
All right.
I mean, the thing is there are a lot of communists who would agree with you that the moment the state gets involved, a lot of people get murdered, which is why they don't want the state involved.
But wouldn't that be anarchy, like anarchy, not communism? Doesn't communism
there is such a thing as anarcho-communism. I
well, let me say this much: all communism, communism tries to lead to anarchy. Even Karl Marx-style communism tries to lead to anarchy. Problem is, what would end up happening is everybody becomes the government, and guess what? The collective always kills those it doesn't like.
Well, now see, that's a totally different conversation for one. And for two, it depends on how the collective opts to self-regulate as a democracy versus a state-controlled totalitarian society.
The moment there's any group of people, it becomes a government.
Only if that group is not organized. Okay, so what you're talking about, like I'm talking about the idea of small-scale direct democracy.
That's not communist.
But wouldn't that itself be a form of government? So it couldn't be anarchy.
Also, let me say this much. Democracies are terrible. Anybody that thinks democracies are good doesn't know what they are.
Well, if you're talking about Grecian democracy, I suppose I can understand that.
No, I'm talking about pure democracies.
Well, okay, that gets into an entirely different discussion. That actually, there's a feminist paper I've actually read for a class that I think you would actually surprisingly find yourself agreeing with. But that's its own YouTube video, to be honest with you.
Fuck! I just about stepped my neck. Wait, real quick, before we go any further. Ichabod.
Yeah. What's up?
I am drunk. What curse words can I say on... Wait. Let me finish. What curse words may I say on your stream?
Well, let's be fair here. Fuck, cunt, shit, damn, cock. I don't particularly give a shit, just so long as it's contextually sound. Don't just start spouting off lynching, okay?
Let's lynch them Negroes. Anyway.
Yeah, that's it. Let's don't get
we started alt-right ethno-state.
YouTube channel deleted. Oh,
fucking mosquito just landed on my actual eyeball.
I mean, let me give you an example.
Yes.
And of an interesting post I came across that might, because you were also getting on me for saying that you were like saying I have to choose between capitalism and communism, and the fact is, I think they both suck. And you were getting mad at me for that. And let me give you an example.
No, I never said that. Let me point this out. I never said you have to choose between either one as the system that you would prefer to have. Well, that's wrong, incorrect way to state that. I never said you had to, no. I never said that one is perfect or that one is the perfect system by which to govern. My wording was that one is clearly better than the other. And I believe I'm correct.
You said communism evil, and technically, I think you meant to say capitalism good, but you said capitalism God, which led to my response of maybe there are no gods, trucker.
Let me say this much: there is only one God.
Oh, I will fight you on that.
Okay, not gonna get in that just yet.
Oh no, you should see me debate atheist. It's fucking hilarious, right, Bridge?
Oh, but here's the thing: I'm not an atheist, and I could choose to debate that from a hardcore polytheist standpoint or a pantheist standpoint.
And I would wreck you on
Take your
both because
pick.
I'd go into quantum physics.
All right, let's not go down this road.
Oh, so quantum woo, brilliant.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no,
what was
go
I
ahead.
saying? No,
Let it run.
let me just say this much. I do believe that capitalism has its fair share of problems. One of my favorite modern philosophers is Michel Henry, who very much liked Karl Marx. He referred to Karl Marx as one of the greatest Christian philosophers in world history. And while I think his assessment of Karl Marx was absolutely retarded, I do like his book Barbarism, which I've only read the first chapter because the full book costs like $700 fucking dollars. But the thing is, capitalism has its issues, and we're going to have to face those one day. I'm not disagreeing there. I believe that absolutely. I know it's true. I just don't think communism or any form of communism is the way to do it.
Well, I mean, for myself, as far as I would take it, I mean, I like the universal basic income idea, and I like universal healthcare. I'm not, however, for universal education. And I know you're super anti-universal healthcare, and that makes me evil in your eyes. But that's as far as I take it.
I
I'm
never
not a
said that. I don't think universal healthcare, as we perceive of it, is a good idea. I think universal catastrophic healthcare is a good idea. Anything else is terrible in its application.
But the problem is that preventative medicine can prevent the higher costs of catastrophic healthcare medicine.
I don't believe
I mean,
that.
let me give you an example. And this is a very personal one in my life. I'm just going to be open about it. It's not at any... The reason I don't show my face on YouTube, as I've said before, is because I'm working on a graduate degree. And while my school is behind me 100%, I still don't want my school dealing with the fallout of defending me as a student, you know, if somebody gets all mad and stuff that I'm on the YouTube doing things. Because I've seen SJWs attack my school before for stuff, and I just do not want...
Don't you go to a Catholic college?
No, of course not. We'll have that conversation at some other point if we need to, because, I mean, you've met me in real... because we're on live stream right now, and I don't want to dox myself. That's just putting me out.
Do it. Her name is...
Nope. Hey.
Anyway,
you've met me in real life, so...
As a side note...
You've met me in real life, so there's... But,
as a side note, there is a question from the chat, and it's, what do you think of anarcho-socialism?
That's just as retarded as any anarchy.
I think that was directed towards Bridge.
I am... how do I put this? Like most other positions, I can empathize with the good and the bad in how somebody would both appreciate that and criticize it. I mean, honestly, I would be very wary of somebody trying to implement that for the exact same
probably
reason.
Genocidal.
I would be wary of somebody trying to implement that for the same reasons I'd be wary of simply Bernie Sanders' education plan. You know,
we're going to steal from the top 1% because they definitely have enough money. Because the word's 1%.
I mean, they do have a lot of money. They have an obscene amount of money.
So,
actually, not true.
It seems a little idealistic. Fair?
Yeah, it's a little.
All things are idealistic except killing the rich to pay for my health care.
I don't think anybody was talking about killing anybody except maybe the people who start talking about ditches, which is a joke Red will get in the chat.
I have helicopters lined up.
There are very few small pockets of Tumblr communists who will start talking about putting people in ditches, but But outside of that,
Oh, you've clearly never been to an atheist convention. They talk
Oh,
about
dear
killing people way
oh
too
no,
much.
oh no, oh no, oh
I'm about to
no.
piss off your entire viewership, Ichabod.
I did just go for it. I don't care. Free speech platform.
Look,
Fuck you.
I mean, I mean, if
I'm
I
going to
went
avoid
on
it
to a
because it's off topic.
pantheist, like if I went on to the pantheist debate with Trucker, I mean, honestly, that would come from a more, I guess, atheist-friendly standpoint than obviously
I
the
don't think atheists
polytheistic one.
can be friendly. And yes, that was a purposeful misunderstanding of what you said.
Okay, well, anyway, um, I'm trying to think of where I was going with this. Oh, right. Back on the fact that I'm trying to get through grad school. Like the other reason, going on to the universal healthcare, the other reason I don't show my face is to be honest. Then Cheers said this on his streams that he has the same issue. I mean, like my teeth are not the greatest. That's
Oh,
a
for
super
fuck's
fun
sake.
problem
Not
I've
this
got.
shit again.
Well,
Fix
no,
that
but
snaggled tooth and you'll be quite pretty.
okay. Actually, I'm technically missing 3 teeth, not just one, and it's actually technically 2.5. But there's also, you know, crowns and root canals and crap that I need. But the thing is, you know, if I had had the money to just go and fix it when it was $800 worth of dental cavities or something like that, instead of dealing with, multiple $2,000 to $4,000 root canals and crowns, I mean, that's a good example of a very easy place where you can see that preventative medicine can actually save costs versus
Wait.
waiting for catastrophic
In the
medicine.
case that you're talking about, preventative medicine is literally brushing your teeth.
Okay, but here's the thing. I did that every single day. Some people just actually have, I guess, bad something.
You got the bad genetics. We need to start the eugenics program with you.
Oh, please, let's not argue eugenics again. We already had that chat on Cherokoo's channel.
Wait. Yes, before anybody misunderstands, I'm not pro-eugenics. I think it's retarded.
But
and I also think it's a left-wing idea.
There's a lot of right-wingers who would disagree.
The alt-right does not count. They are left-wing, and I can argue that to the grave.
Okay. Let me actually give you an example of where I can put on the hat of the other side, and I can't believe I'm doing this. If I were to
fascist.
God damn it.
Well, I mean, okay, not fascist, but extreme right. Well, actually, no. I will have to wind up arguing a fascist position. Thank you so much, Trucker. This is going to go down great in my resume. But if I were to argue like a fascist, which I am not, and I disagree with fascism wholeheartedly, but as a mental exercise, I would say that, well, the thing is okay, assuming like an Ayn Rand perspective, where your value as a human being.
Wonderful author. Everybody should read her work.
Okay, well, the problem is that under her world, the value you make as a human being is your worth. If you do not produce value, then you are not worth anything. Therefore,
I agree.
Okay, well, therefore, if you are disabled, you are not producing value, and bye.
Hey, I produce value.
Well,
yeah, I know a guy that literally has no arms. That is one of the single best Spectrum phone call guys you'll ever get on a phone.
Well, unfortunately, I myself
he types with his toes and drives with his feet. It's fucking hilarious to watch.
I myself am disabled in multiple ways, physical and I have some mental health issues too.
Mental disorders aren't real.
God damn it.
I'm joking.
They're real enough to the people who practice eugenics. Just ask the autistics.
I'm joking.
Anyway, but I mean, by that logic, I mean, the fact is that I would be worthless because you know what? I don't produce much in a month in capitalistic terms. I earn less than $250 a month. I'm just going to state that up front.
You're worth $250 a month.
I'm not even worth that. I make less than that, is what I just stated.
My friend says, not to him, you're worth nothing to him.
Okay, well, there's that. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that the irony is I would be that worthless, and yet I'm working on a graduate degree as I can.
Look, I'll say this much. I love Ayn Rand's works. I've never read her philosophy. I've read her fiction, but let's be honest, her fiction might as well be her philosophy. Honest truth.
Well, she
But,
goes on long essay rants, but I actually have read Virtue
No,
and
I know. I
Selfishness.
called her fiction, her philosophy. But here's the thing. I do believe that in her case, her work is too black and white, even for somebody like me. All right? Which,
Wow.
quite frankly, is quite a statement. I love her work. I think she's right on a lot of points. I think she doesn't have enough wiggle room at all.
Well, I can hear you on that, but you just basically heard me make a right-wing argument for eugenics. That's how you could make one. If everything is based
No,
on...
there's no such thing as a right-wing argument for eugenics, because the right wing is now libertarian.
I mean, but it's but hang on, it's also de facto eugenics in that sense, because the fact is if you do not because if you don't have a social safety net, people starve to death. People die without medical care.
Let me say this much. In the American context, right wing includes Christian morals. All right, and anything we discuss in that, since we're both Americans, well, all three of us are. Shut the fuck up, Billy. All right, it includes Christian morals, and let's be honest, Christian morals are probably the best morals that have ever existed.
I don't think it necessarily does, and the reason why is because I've seen far too often, point blank, people be whichever political party they are first, and their religion second if they're religious.
Those are called not good Christians.
Except I've seen it literally all the time. I've seen it from 95% of the Christians I've encountered. And guess what?
I agree. Most Christians aren't good Christians, in my opinion.
Trucker, real quick. Trucker, is this Billy guy your friend?
Yes, he's the one earlier that I said has never proved himself on a phone call ever.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead and put me on the speaker for a second and let me know when you got me on it.
Oh, God.
1 second, because I seem to have lost the link, the thingy.
No, take your time. Take your time.
Well, I don't know if Ichabod saw the link I sent in the DMs.
Oh,
all right. Hello, person. You are on with the gunsmith.
Well, God damn it, Billy! If I wanted to hear your mouth, I'd unzip my fly.
Fuck you. This guy's a minister too, and you got him to say that. That's fucking great. Jesus Christ.
Sorry, I had to.
He says you're a fucking asshole.
But
he does think that was great. But he does think that was great. He's probably now going to use that on people.
You're welcome. You can have that joke.
All right, let's see. Jesse, I need you to go stand by the fence.
I stepped out for a cigarette, and we're having some kind of... Don't shoot my little brother, you punk. Sorry.
All right, so this is what Bridge put as a link.
Like to say, but before you show that, I just want to say, shout out to Red. Red said that pedos get the ditch. I think that's the first thing a communist has ever said. That
pedos, murderers, and rapists aren't human.
No, but I think that's the first thing. Hang on, Trucker, in the chat, a self-avowed anarcho-communist just said that pedos get the ditch. I feel like this is something you could actually agree with a communist on.
Yeah, that idea, that moral sense there is not actually communist. Karl Marx himself and Frederick Engels did believe that sexuality is currently... Shut the fuck up, Billy. Believed that sexuality is restrained by modern capitalist and Christian norms. They actually have advocated against marriage. They were the original anti-marriage feminist, and for sexuality of all kinds.
Being anti-marriage does not equate to being pro-pedophilia, and I feel like
no, they believe that modern forms of sexuality. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they believe, they said in their own books that the modern forms of sexuality that are allowed and believed to be good are restrictive norms created by capitalists and Christians. Actually,
Okay, but even
communist ideology used to be Christian until Karl Marx.
The thing is when people make broad, sweeping ideological statements, they often don't think of the exceptions to their own statements. So when you make a statement like that, they were probably thinking of things like homosexuality. I mean, when you say certain things, I'm sure that there's certain ways that your words could be taken that you're not always immediately thinking of. It happens to most people who make generalized statements, myself included, I'm sure. I'm not aware of them for the same reason most people aren't aware when they do it.
Wait, what was that last part?
Myself included, I'm sure. I'm sure I've made broad, sweeping generalization statements before and not thought through all of the possible exceptions. The thing is everyone does that.
So did you want me to read this out?
Sure.
Go ahead.
If there was a way to say it, yeah.
So I'm gonna preface this just because I see the bottom one.
Yes.
I am not a communist, and I'm sorry, Daps, for me for reading this out because you're probably gonna get very upset at the concept. Anarchism in a nutshell. Anarchism is a social movement that seeks to abolish oppressive systems. Anarchists advocate a self-managed, classless, stateless society where everyone takes a collective responsibility for the health and prosperity of their community. Anarchists are against coercive hierarchy. Anarchists believe that power corrupts and that everything should be treated equally. Anarchists seek to reduce or even end violence and oppression. The increasingly frequent misrepresentation of anarchism by the media to be about violence, nihilism, or disorder is completely false. All anarchists are anti-capitalism and anti-state. I have to disagree with the capitalism part. Capitalism is an economic system where investors and landlords are allowed to extract wealth from the economy without contributing goods or services back. Under capitalism, actual workers have little autonomy or control over themselves. Instead, they are controlled by politicians and bankers. So-called anarcho-capitalists are not truly anarchists. It is a right-wing ideology that has very little in common with anarchism, apart from the name, which they co-opted. Anarchists advocate for socialism instead of capitalism. Under socialism, workers have direct control of the means of production or the land, factories, and offices. Through democratic organization, anarchists seek to remove the abusable system of power that bosses and politicians leverage today to unjustly rule over society. Anarchists want to give everyone complete control over that which affects them. Most anarchists are communists and advocate a classless, moneyless, stateless society. Others are mutualists and advocate free market socialism. Anarchist society has no central authority, but instead consists of interconnected communities that use direct democracy, specifically consensus, to organize themselves without rulers or bosses. This was from Anarchy 101 on the Reddit.
Fucking Reddit.
Okay. So
via consensus.
I got a few criticisms in consensus with him.
Okay, I have to say about the concept when they said that capitalism itself was not that, and then proceeded to say
ridiculous. Yeah.
Then proceeded to make an argument for anarcho-capitalism. That was a little ridiculous.
Wait, let me say this much. Let me say this much. No good anarchist can be a capitalist. I will agree in that statement. Because then you would end up with capitalist leaders that end up acting as the government. That much I agree is true as a criticism of anarcho-capitalist. The other problem with the anarcho-communist is, let's be quite honest, it doesn't work. Without money, people will starve to death. Without merit-based systems of work, people will not work.
Okay, actually, it's interesting that you should say that, and I'll go back to hang on. Hold up.
I'm going to be at the dinner table now, so I'll be muting and talking randomly.
Well, one thing when you were bringing up the capitalist as de facto government thing, it's funny that you should say that. This post is actually from, God help me, did I actually just dive into anarcho-capitalist Tumblr? Yes, I did.
Just as a side note, the thing here of capitalism is an economic system where investors and landlords are allowed to extract wealth from the economy without contributing goods or services back. Specifically in the concept of a landlord, they're giving a service. They're allowing
maintaining the building
to live in their property for a certain fee.
and hopefully maintaining the building.
Yeah, sometimes. But yeah, I'm just looking at this, and it's just, direct control of the means of production or land factories and offices. That sounds just like anarcho-capitalism.
Any good capitalist would keep up the buildings.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, so going. Well,
somebody else
here's the
somewhere else.
thing. Okay, just to get onto this, I was going to read this aloud real quick. This is from Pustuk and Anonymous Trap. Great screen name there on the Tumblrs.
Yeah.
One of my favorite late capitalism dystopia predictions is that in the near future, licensing will expand and replace ownership beyond software, and no one will actually own anything, and you get sued for eating your Domino's pizza in a way that's not on brand. Like, aren't operating systems and no, hang on. Like, aren't operating systems and by practical extension access to your own laptops and files licensed already? Yeah, more or less all consumer-oriented software has already been for quite some time. Then, since the onset of locked bootloaders and App Store walled gardens, it's effectively impossible for end users to use software and the hardware it runs on in ways that developers don't intend. I think you're totally right about this expanding into non-computer-related markets. It's already begun with transportation startups. Which may eventually replace, like Uber might eventually replace actually owning your own means of transportation with its, company-owned vehicles. Past a certain point, it will be totally unprofitable for companies to offer anything for sale, and the idea that anyone can fully perpetually own any kind of consumer good will no longer exist. You will simply be licensing it, much like you do from Xbox or Steam. And if you think you own your games on an Xbox, apparently you don't, because Microsoft is now willing to revoke your entire library catalog if you're caught doing nude webcam stuff on Skype, apparently.
Okay, first question. Where do I find people to do nude webcam stuff on Skype?
Chatterbait. As a side note, though, because back to the anarchism thing that you had brought up, because I'd like to stick on topic with this. This is actually the major problem with communism. Is direct democracy, specifically consensus. We have a term for that. It's called the tyranny of the majority.
Well, no, okay, but when you're talking about consensus, you're not talking about the tyranny of the majority. That's the thing. In order to have consensus, the minority, you have to come to a compromise with the minority.
So basically, everyone agreeing?
Or you kill the minority, like has gone through without every single democracy in history.
Well, like that's kind of the issue here. Like, if you're trying to get everybody to agree, it will not happen.
They think that they can, and
they're wrong.
You have to talk to me. Not actually being one and have only gone into so much depth with it. You would have to talk to them on why they believe that. I mean, I'm sure it's because a lot of them are hippies, and I've read Trucker Starhawk's main essay from The Fifth Sacred Thing. That kind of outlines a similarly based society.
I think it was Thomas More wrote a book.
Oh gosh, not Thomas More.
Really good book,
the one who was against
horrible.
Henry VIII and divorce.
He was a Christian communist long before Karl Marx existed.
Are we talking about the same guy? Because he was the one who was against the foundation of the Church of England and Henry VIII getting divorced. Which I used to root for him back when I was trying to fight my own divorce, and then when I accepted it, I was finally like, no, never mind. Bye, Thomas More.
Divorces are a horrible thing. I wish that they never happened.
So here's the thing. Now I'm going to take this to an uncomfortable point, because this is what my issue.
It doesn't get uncomfortable unless my anus is involved.
Trust me, this is about to get uncomfortable. All right, so here's the dilemma that I see with consensus. 75% of the population wants to set fire and eat disabled babies. And that means feeding them to the homeless people who have no food. 25%
I'm about to go out and kill 75% of the population.
Part of how that winds up working in a consensus-governed place.
Let me finish. All right. Now, 25% of the population think that is morally wrong and wish to attack the 75% of the population that believes that that is correct. So,
That's me.
in a consensus society, how do we come to an answer? This is an obviously horribly moral question, but do we let them burn and eat babies, or do we not? The majority says burn and eat the baby.
I can actually somewhat answer that. If you cannot come to a consensus, then any legislation simply doesn't go forward, in the same way that if you can't come to a majority in the United States, it doesn't usually go forward, except for all of this stupid hullabaloo they've managed to get to force through some bad legislation.
No, you're wrong. Real quick, you're wrong. You don't need a majority of the population in America. You need a majority of the representatives. We are a republic. We're not a democracy.
Exactly.
Thank God.
What I'm trying to say is that basically you'd have to apply those same rules that you're talking about with representatives to the population as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Would that work within a small communist society?
And you'd have to be much more strict with them than you currently are with representatives who push through some things that, you know.
Well, here's the thing, Rich. You have an overwhelming majority who want to do this. Why would they listen to that 25%? They have the majority.
Well, at that point, you're trying to argue, why does anybody listen to the rule of law and not simply resort to mob justice? Which you'd have to ask the same question in the U.S. as well.
Yeah, which
he's talking about within a democracy.
Yeah, the point of it is...
Well, we are technically, partly at least, in a democracy.
No, we're not. Not in any way, shape, or form.
But this is the problem. Once we add a human element to this...
in many ways, you could argue that we're not even in a republic. We're in a corporation-controlled country.
Let Ichabod talk.
Anyway, so here's the issue. The second you add a human element to this concept, the concept of everybody's getting along, the second you add a human element, you're going to have a problem, because there are some people out there who just don't care. And if they've got the majority of a population behind them, an overwhelming one, that will lead to tyranny, because they can just be like, well, the majority's on my side.
No, you don't even need a majority. Stalin's government and the people that voted for him were less than 10% of the population.
The thing is, well, okay, but that gets into a whole other thing that is kind of beyond the scope of this stream for me. But in terms of the majority and such, the thing that would prevent a majority would simply be the fact that in the rule of the law there would be the fact that a majority isn't enough. You would have to have consensus. And if you ignore the consensus, then you're talking about simply ignoring what the rules of the government are, which, more and more a lot of people are trying to do.
Let me say this much. You're talking about everybody agrees, 100% consensus, right?
I mean, finds a workable compromise that everyone can agree to, much like how the Senate hashes out bills, yes.
That's called a fairy tale?
Well, you'll
never get everybody to agree on everything.
At the very least, it's very unlikely. Maybe not a fairy tale, but it's very, very unlikely because of that.
About as likely as life happening on its own.
We are not going down the religious route. Let's not.
There's a lot of people. If people simply don't care, I mean, I suppose there's people who can vote no contest, for example, on that. But I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, it's very close to some of how our country should run. It doesn't always, but in that sense, it's very close to some of how it should run in terms of how legislation is hashed out between Congress and the Senate. And often they kind of make roadblocks and won't actually discuss the issues or even try to come up with the best solution. They come up with the best one that pleases their donors and not necessarily what's right for the American people.
Real quick, let me say this much. My favorite roadblock in congressional history is Ted Cruz reading Green Eggs and Ham for 48 hours straight.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, that just reminds me of my favorite comment that I've made, which was the vice presidential debate during the 2016 election. When I saw Mike Pence talking, and I saw
God bless Mike Pence,
and I saw the other guy talking. I'm trying to even remember. I can't even remember who ran on the vice president ticket on the Democrat side at the moment. It's escaping my brain. I'm being
somebody
honest about
unimportant.
That. Well, anyway, when I saw the two of them having their debate, I remember my immediate thought was, we finally met the babysitters of the grown children who have been debating these other events.
Okay, give me just a second. I gotta go pee, so just kind of continue things. But I've had to pee for like 2 minutes. I'm trying to be like, I got pissed, bros.
Wait, let Minty try to be the moderator. Let's see how that goes.
Okay.
God.
Honey,
Oh, God.
You've been summoned to take over while I pee. Chaos will ensue. I'm just saying, do not, under any circumstances, fucking bully this woman. Okay? Look me in the eyes. Look me in the eyes. No. All right. I'm turning it over to her while I go pee.
So I didn't realize you two were together. That's interesting. Hello.
Yeah. Is Minty there? Hello?
Hello.
Apparently my job is to moderate and to also be a shitlord, so I get... Who the fuck is...
argued from...
Apparently I'm supposed to bully you or something like that?
I don't know, something along that line. I don't know, man. There was something along the line of someone being a... I'm joking, sorry. As a note, though, who brought up the religious element?
Me, every time.
You motherfucker. I was about to actually say something about that. I was even yelling it in the background. Ichabod is like, don't make me bring up the religion of pieces, damn it!
I'm partly religious as well, but I'm not Abrahamic.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I don't do the Judaism, Christianity, Islam thing.
I think 99% of religion should be eradicated from the world, but that's just me.
I think Christianity is responsible for the modern world, and I thank it greatly for my phone, technology, and everything I have and love.
Great.
I'm horrified by both of your statements, and I try to see the good in religion in kind of a way that's half Spinoza's God and half Sam Harris.
I used to be. Well, to be fair, I'm
Sam
more...
Harris is a moron.
I won't go down that road of...
I haven't seen his most recent podcast about Christianity, so I won't comment on that because that could be total cancer by my own definition.
The moment Sam Harris hits metaphysics, he falls apart. I do a better job as a layman than he does.
I mostly disagree, except for when he gets into the free will debate, but that's a whole other... Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so...
What's your position, Minty? Besides the 90% thing, what do you think of... No, do you think there is a God?
Where the fucking God?
I love you.
Sorry. I feel that feeling that I was gone for fucking 3 minutes and she has destroyed everything.
It went straight into religion.
God damn it!
It didn't go as bad as you thought. It didn't go as bad as you thought.
You weren't gone long enough for it to go as bad as you thought.
Okay. So what are we at now?
Well, she asked who was religious, and he first put up his hand and said him. And then I said, technically, I argued for... I'm sorry, she asked who brought up religion, and you said you. And then I said that I somewhat also qualify, but not from an Abrahamic perspective, i.e. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. But, well, yes, but you have a different soft spot for it than I do.
I think Christianity and Catholicism for the modern world, and I love it, even though I don't believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
And
right,
I think Enlightenment philosophy for the modern world for the most part.
Oh, that philosophy that was brought around due to the Catholic Church. Yep, we agree.
Actually, it was mostly brought about in rebellion to the Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church was certainly a necessary catalyst for...
So I think we are going to move on to religion or not?
No, he and I have hashed this out enough, and honestly, it usually winds up ending in both of us reading the Bhagavad Gita together.
Doing what?
Both of us doing who?
Reading the Bhagavad Gita.
I love the Bhagavad Gita. Hinduism is a wonderful religion and scripture.
That's usually where our religious conversations wind up going eventually.
Look,
so,
I tell people all the time, in practice, my favorite religion is Christianity. In scripture, it's Hinduism.
And in practice, I've seen far too many nasty Christians, but I'm definitely not alone in that.
Yeah, but considering Christians and Jews have founded every major science in world history, I like them.
I mean,
Anyway.
But just to even pull slightly back from that, I mean, to go back into my background, Trucker knows this, but your audience will not. I mean, I was raised by someone who worked for Jerry Falwell. And my grandmother worked for Pat Robertson.
Nor do I.
Oh, well, someone in the chat.
Go ahead, get into it.
Oh, well, if I have... okay, let me rephrase this. Are you familiar with the author
This
of the
conversation's already gone off the whales.
Oh, God, that guy. All right.
It's not the Left Behind book guy, but it's the guy who hired that guy to teach at his university.
Okay, now that just sounds dumb.
Magic.
I like the books, but having him teach anything sounds stupid.
Jerry Falwell, well, I mean, he taught a class on, how do I put this, the end times and biblical apocalypses and things. So technically he was teaching from his wheelhouse. But it was still like, I mean, they had a creation science museum in like the basement of the same building. So,
no. If you want to see a great website, go to creationism.
No.
Okay, moving on.
We're not going to.
No, they're really good. They're really good at arguing with atheists until you get the second half of their articles and they start talking about the world being 5,000 years old. Then it goes to crap.
I mean, if I wanted to drop an A-bomb on the conversation, I could bring up how you think there's holes in the theory of evolution. But
there is, definitely.
Not go there. Oh, God.
There definitely holes in the theory of evolution.
Once we go through the theory of evolution talking point, do you guys want to take a couple of questions from the chat?
I think we've gone way off topic.
Yes, I'm
will
happy to do that in a moment. I just wanted to first say that basically to clarify who Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson are together over a conference call, they blamed September 11th on atheists and feminists.
Hey, I'd agree. No, I'm fucking around.
And gays. Yes. Atheists, feminists, gays, and the ACLU. That's who's to blame for September 11th, according to them.
You did. I'm yelling at some kids. I'm calling them evil, dirty atheist or something. I don't know. You evil atheist! Science is evidence of God, you punks.
All right. So, Trucker, what are the holes in the theory of evolution?
Oh, Lord.
All right. Multiple things. One, quite frankly, I don't exactly believe that slow changes over time account for the mass change in genetics, figure, and form. I don't think you can go from a deer thingy to a whale. It makes no sense. When the fuck did he get a hole in his skull? How? Why? What purpose did that serve? Also, the transitionary period between, for example, any dinosaur lung to a modern bird lung, great example here, would end up with bird thingies with holes in their lungs. In other words, they die. And any form of any type of hypothetical transitionary creature, 9 out of 10 times, ends up with a really fucked up hypothetical link that ends up killing the creature.
Okay, so what you're saying
also,
is...
I don't believe our understanding of genetics is anywhere near accurate.
Well, so what you're saying is transition fossils seem inconsistent.
True transition fossils, and I'm talking, and this is quoting from an evolutionary biologist who's an atheist. I don't remember his name right now. He himself said you would need a fossil every 100,000 years at minimum to create a true transitionary fossil. What do we get? Usually, at best, a few million years.
Well, their fossilization's kind of a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah, I agree. I do believe that evolution is a thing. I just don't think our current theory is completely accurate.
So what you're saying is it's not necessarily that evolution is like thrown out the window. It's more you think that there needs to be more evidence before the theory itself is proven.
Not even that. I think that evolution, at the loosest term of microscopic single-celled organisms to what we are today, is definitely and most obviously true. I just don't think that we have the process of how that happens down 100%. It's most likely a combination of things like slow over-time graduation, which what we would call speciation within a family. For example, doggo thingy becomes wolf, becomes coyote, becomes fox, becomes other doggo thingies, right? That would most likely be the slow transitionary. Like that would be microevolution. All right? And it would have different paths and trees and blah, blah, blah. Let me finish. Let me finish. No, definitely. They'd all have the same ancestor. That's actually exactly what I just said. But I do not think that you could go from, for example, this is just a hypothesis, just putting this out there, a squirrel thingy to a doggo thingy easily. I think there would have to be a mass change in the genetics somehow for that to happen, and I don't think it would just simply happen over trillions and billions and millions of years.
You wouldn't go from a squirrel thingy to a doggo thingy. You'd go from a common ancestor of the two into a squirrel and a dog.
That's why I said a squirrel thingy. I didn't say a squirrel. I said a squirrel thingy.
I'm fine with if you somehow show what's on my cam here. I'm showing bone structure commonalities between a human, a cat, a whale, and a bat.
Well, of course there's bone structure commonalities. These bone structures work. Why wouldn't they use them multiple times? Every car has a tire.
But I'm saying that they wound up...
Look, I don't disagree with the overall hypothesis that all modern mammals came from some kind of mammal thingy. I'm saying that how that happens, we don't know 100%.
You're saying there needs to be more evidence. That's it.
No, not even more evidence. There needs to be more study into how the transition happens. Evolution itself is obvious. It's self-evident in every single possible way. But how that evolution happens, don't know exactly. I don't think the scientists are right. I've studied this for years. I don't think they're right.
So, but you know, more studies would be evidence. So, like, you're just saying you want more evidence to discover exactly how it works.
Right. I don't think the current common consensus is right.
Let me ask: is it evolution by natural selection you don't agree with?
Yes and no. I think it has a combination to do with natural selection over long periods of time, and also along with rapid, quick changes in short periods of time due to the genetic code changing rapidly. Don't know how that would be done. Viruses would have
selective breeding.
Themselves breeding, because doing that we've never changed a kind of animal. We've never gone from a horse to something else that isn't a horse.
Well, yeah, that's the kinds thing, man, and like, let's not get into kinds.
Well, everybody knows what I mean by kinds. If anybody doesn't, then they're just doing atheist apologetics and are
No, I legitimately don't know what you mean by kind. Do you mean species?
I mean, for example, family canine. If I say family canine, you inherently know what I mean. Fox, wolf, coyote, all doggo thingies.
Foxes don't fall under the family of canine. They fall under vulpine. Yeah, they're vulpines.
Yeah.
Well,
that's order, by the way. Canine.
Right. You get what I mean exactly, though.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, but like that's
like if I were to say, for example, that horses and zebras are of the same kind, you get what I mean. Then if I said that zebras and dolphins are of the same kind, you'd look at me and go, "The fuck."
They're in the same family, but that's the thing.
They're mammals, but that's about the closest link. Right, but they're obviously one's a water thingy.
Yeah, but what you're saying is like your point of kind is the order. Like a bat and a cat are not the same kind. Right.
It's fairly self-evident. Nobody would look at the two and go, clearly they're the same kind of creature.
No, I can get the concept of order being kinds. And I'm not sure that a Chihuahua should be considered a canine.
Let's be honest, Chihuahuas should just be considered pathetic. I live around 1 million of them, and I hate them all.
Okay.
I know people who just call Chihuahuas footballs.
They're fucking rats is what they are. They're just overgrown rats.
No, they're overgrown rats that have their skin that looks creepy. Their skin looks creepy. It really does.
But if we take the concept of, let's say, physical appearance, like that's what most people, when they're like, the kind. That's what I have a problem with when somebody uses the word kind. You say order, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly.
Don't worry,
I thought this was going to like a race realism place, honestly. I was worried for a second.
But,
let me say this much. As somebody that prefers to breed with women that are not my same race, it'll never go that way.
Yeah, but somebody might say that a fucking possum and a fucking rat are the same kind, and that shit just take everything and throw it out the window, set fire to it, we're done.
Real quick, about the race realism thing, I can make a claim about that nobody else here can. I have personally pissed off millennial woes and about 10 other race realists all at once.
Oh, I remember how. This is always a good joke. Go on.
All right, let's go.
They were talking about white genocide and how breeding with non-white women is the murder of white babies. And my comment was, well, if that's white genocide, then I am a genocidal maniac. And I personally pissed him off.
I mean, to be fair, you know, when it comes to breeding with not white women is white genocide, I mean, I must be a monster.
That kind of reminds me of... one of my favorite Twitter arguments that tends to get used against those people is just and yes, I just used those people. Sorry about that. I try to avoid ever saying that about anyone.
They're not people. No, I'm kidding.
I would anyway. I still see even my people I disagree with as people. But basically, one of my favorite memes is when somebody just goes into those communities, drops a photo of a hot woman from another race and goes, well, there goes your ethno-state.
Agreed. Let me say this much. I will never, ever be for a white ethno-state for one very solid reason. I'm an ass man. And I'm sorry, all you white women out there, you just don't have as nice asses as Hispanic and black women.
There are exceptions to the rule, but not very many. But on to the point of the concept of race realism, let me be very, very, very blunt about this. Just because you color swap a character doesn't mean that pussy's gonna change.
It's still delicious.
Still pussy. You can still stick your dick in it. That's it. And the dick might be a little different shade, but it's still a dick. So just
wait. Fun fact about this. About this. You're going to love this.
Oh, no.
They've done multiple studies about this, right?
Oh, Lord.
Apparently, the only people in the world that the stereotype about penises applies to is Asians.
Okay, yeah, maybe, okay. Moving on from Chinese dicks.
Also, condom companies sell only... No. The smallest condoms in the world are sold in China.
God damn it.
I'm not kidding.
Oh, Lord.
Look into this. It's hilarious.
Here's the thing. Like, this live stream came about from you guys having yourselves kind of an argument about this, but what I'm seeing here is you guys are still very friendly with each other.
Well,
So,
he was telling me to never contact him again a couple of days ago. So.
No, my problem is that. Well, real quick, let's get back into this. I want to, as a suggestion, Ichabod. Let's take a break and do them questions that you said.
Yes. Yeah.
And then let's get back into it and lay out the disagreements.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if anybody has a question in the chat, pop it in there. Doc Griffin says, "Wait, is this ultimately a discussion about animal husbandry?"
I mean, I was thumbing through my biology textbook, and I have a friend who's a genetic engineer. So,
let me say this much:
that sounds like another live stream, though.
I'm going to quote Uncle Ruckus here: "Put makeup in a wig on a monkey." Anyway.
All right, Minty apparently has a question. Speak.
Don't force me to say something. I'm gonna fucking laugh, and I'm just saying so wrong man shit. What?
Just ask your fucking.
Just speak.
Go on.
You guys were talking about race realism.
Oh no.
Question about that.
Speak.
You guys, there are differences between races, yeah, but I'm actually curious what you think of the people that actually believe in race realism and all that shit. I don't honestly care about them, but I'm curious what your guys' thoughts on it.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on the people that believe in race realism?
I mean,
it depends on what you define as race realism. If you're going to say clearly some races are different, then I would say, yeah, some races are different. I mean, nobody would disagree that Asians and Jews on average are smarter than the average population, that there's always a black guy at the front of a marathon, except for the tranny. Caitlyn Jenner joke. Okay, always a black guy at the front of a marathon, stuff like this. However, my problem with that comes into when they try to quantify these things as being more or less valuable as a human. I don't believe that at all, and there's clearly enough of the population of each race that has traits that you would consider, if you were a race realist, stereotypical to each race in each race. For example, one of the smartest minds to ever live, in my opinion, is Thomas Sowell. Dude's black as fuck. He grew up in Harlem.
Well, I would actually strongly disagree with some of your contentions about necessarily saying, Asians and Jewish people being per se smarter so much as perceived as being
on average, they are smarter. They have an average of 10 IQ points higher than the average population.
That there's a lot of different factors that contribute to IQ.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, right, but it has very little to do with genetics and more to do with the stable ability of, for example, food, which is why in some parts of China, you'll actually find lower IQs in more rural areas where food is more scarce. So it has a lot more to do with economic availability and what environment someone grows up in.
Let me quote Thomas Sowell here about this. I think you'll love this comment from Thomas Sowell, okay?
Okay.
He's talking about why people would expect exact equity across the races. And now he brought up as just one fine example is that the average lifespan of the average Japanese American is around 90 years. This includes male and female, okay? It's around 90 years. Okay, the average lifespan, if you just look at Hispanics, is about 60, okay? So, now we look at the average fields of that Hispanics and Asians, Japanese Americans specifically tend to go to. Japanese tend to go into very scientific and degree-oriented fields. Hispanics tend to go into things like baseball. They tend to go into mechanics. This is the reality, they tend to go into not necessarily low-skilled, but not long-term education-based jobs.
I was actually
this may very well
likely to be injured.
Yeah, that's true. But the one very good reason is that, quite frankly, the Hispanic does not have as much time to study as the Asian does.
Well, when you're growing up, you can, depending on what. I mean, it just depends on a lot of.
Also, as an
things,
interesting side note, there's a shit ton of Hispanic historians, not very many Japanese.
But one of the things that you brought up before, though, you went into like marathon runners in the African American community. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that, in the Black community. because I was specifically going to make the point that actually very few of those runners are African American. Most of them are actually from Africa.
All right, let me change that to football.
Part of the reason why that happens is because, hang on, anthropologically speaking, most cultures can be divided into sitting cultures versus squatting cultures.
That sounds hilarious, and about ways that they poop.
It has nothing to do with the ways that they poop. It has more to do with the fact that some people are more comfortable actually sitting down with their butt on a chair or the floor. And in other cultures, it's much more common to never actually sit unless you're lying down to sleep. Your butt doesn't go in contact with the floor. You simply squat down, and that actually becomes comfortable for you in your resting state. And that form of stretching results in elongated tendons and ligaments, and generally sort of a favorability towards that, which is why running becomes more easy for people from squatting cultures as opposed to sitting cultures, because their leg tendons tend to be a lot more flexible and a lot more endurant.
Right. No, let me say this much. I would definitely agree with that. The culture and the environment you grew up on, I'd say that it's about probably 70% culture and environment. All right? Anybody says that genetics play no role in your intelligence or your what's the right word I'm looking for? Your tendency to do things, I think would be a fool.
Proclivities.
Right? Yeah, proclivities. Okay? I think you'd be a fool to say that genetics has no role to play in your proclivities. But I don't think it's a massive role.
Insofar as that's concerned, though, basically, long story short of it, if you took somebody from, let's go with a nation we'd both make fun of sometimes. I was going to say France. If you took somebody from France and for some terrible reason,
everybody makes fun of the French.
There's so many reasons for that.
And for some terrible reason, you stuck them in Kenya and had them grow up in a Kenyan family. For some reason or another. They could grow up to be a marathon runner if from a very young age they were used to squatting instead of sitting.
Yeah, no, nothing you said right there disagreed with me.
All right. Well, I mean, so that's not really a race realism thing. That's just a cultural thing.
No, I agree. The majority of the things that you end up choosing in life, blah, 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 have to do with your culture. I'd say your race influences it to a minor... Not your race. That's the wrong way of saying it. Your genetics.
Because it's kind of beautiful.
The next question...
Don't worry, bashing the French is perfectly normal and human.
So the next question comes from Total Madness, and he says, is solipsism considered foolish? What about... Goddamn, fuck you, Total Madness. Epiphenomenalism.
No idea. What?
Basically, fuck you.
Dictionary definitions.
Next question. What is the biggest non-moral problem with the death penalty?
It's like I actually knew the first word he was talking about, but not the second one. The biggest non-moral problem with the death penalty?
I have no problem with the death penalty. I believe murder all the rapists, serial killers, and pedophiles. Do it instantly. Take them out back and put a fucking 22 in their skull. A 22 specifically because it'll bounce around and be a lot more painful.
Optimus Christ has praised Doug. Just because I...
God damn it, Optimus, praise Doug, motherfucker.
I am of the mindset that, first of all, a lot of death row convictions have been shown to be
not a lot
historically wrong over the years.
What's a lot? What's a lot?
Oh, let me go get my source. Apologies, because I have my part of why my browser is slow isn't even just how old my computer is. It's because I've probably got over 6,000 bookmarks.
Too much porn.
Actually, none of it's porn. All of it's politics.
I don't believe you. You're on Tumblr, therefore you have porn.
Therefore, I see it. I don't bookmark it, sir.
You have at least one Tumblr page bookmarked, therefore you have porn.
That's not how that works, especially if you also follow Catholic Tumblrs, but that's a whole other story.
That sounds horrible.
Doc made this for me while we were streaming, so yeah, there that is.
Well, now you just look like Rocket Raccoon.
I know, right?
Nice.
Son of a bitch.
Also, I will say this much. I have 300 bookmarks. Only 7/8 of them are porn. It's great.
It works, I guess.
Let me say this much. Rocket Raccoon is my single favorite Marvel character ever, simply because he is a reference to a Beatles song. So.
Okay, while it's not per se a high number, about 120 of the roughly 3,000 inmates on inmates on death row in America right now might not be guilty. With additional scores of wrongful conviction, additional scores of wrongfully convicted inmates are serving life in prison after their death sentences were reduced over technical legal errors.
So less than 3%?
Actually, it's 4.1% for those who stay on death row, but most of them, most of them during the time that they're on death row get it changed to life in prison because of doubts in the evidence after they're put on death row. If you simply shot them the moment they were put on death row, which is what you've told me multiple times you wish to do, then that number would be much, much higher than 4.1%.
So, as a side note, Trucker, I'm supposed to tell you from Optimus Christ that he's firing Fallout New Vegas up after this, and we have the definitions for the two words. Go ahead and continue now, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, fuck, I just dropped metal.
Apparently, solipsism is the philosophical belief that the world is made of what you know of, that the world cannot consist of things that you do not know or believe, and epiphenomenalism is the belief that mental effects are caused by physical effects and are wholly dependent. We observe our actions and react as such.
I would say to a certain extent that is true, but not true at the same time. For example, I would say that the universe would not exist without a conscious mind to observe it, because, quite frankly, there'd be nobody to define it as existing. There'd be no mind. But at the same time, now let me get into this. This is jumping into my entire philosophy about what God is. I believe that God is a conscious mind that permeates the entire universe and observes all things. So it depends on what you defined as a consciousness that observes it and blah, 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 blah.
No.
Okay. Well, for myself, those are two different things that were talked about, and I don't think the second one got addressed in what you were saying there, Trucker.
What was the second one? Oh, the reactions and actions thing. Before you continue, I would say to a certain extent, yes and no. Your actions are partially defined, I would say, by what you, almost entirely by what you choose to do. But what you choose to do is a set of narrow pathways. For example, the nihilistic thought that that you can do anything and all things as possible pathways to point B from point A. True, but there's only a small set of reasonable pathways you're actually going to choose. Does that make sense? It's sort of he's right and he's wrong. Not even him, but that philosophy is right and wrong.
That's not even quite where that I think was trying to go. I'll go into what I'm going to discuss the first one first. Well, maybe I should take the second one first since my brain's on it. To start with the second word there, I feel like that's getting in towards behaviorism in psychology, and the idea that functional behavior and the observation thereof is all that there really is, and that mind is simply kind of a post hoc self-explanation to keep the narrative flow of one's life in order. And I don't necessarily believe that per se. As I've kind of said, I disagree a little bit with Sam Harris to some extent with regards to the free will debate. However, I do believe that most people, I don't know that necessarily that Trucker, with his comment about nihilism there, a lot of atheists don't think that they have perfectly free will. There's a lot of determinism that's popular at the moment among,
they're wrong,
especially people who believe in many worlds theory, where multiple universes
I don't
well,
believe
yes,
in the
but
many worlds theory.
Well, yes, but a lot of people do.
Yeah, actually, interestingly
in
enough,
only
only 18% of physicists believe in it.
Okay, well, at the same time, with your answer there, Trucker, I mean, one thing I will say is that I don't have the sense of the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics that you do. I actually, even though he's a very problematic person and very, apparently got accused of rape by the Me Too movement or some such thing, somebody don't negate their science. Lawrence Krauss actually was the person who kind of disabused me of my notion of the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is the idea that an observer is what causes the difference between the observation of a wave versus a particle when you're looking at the Heisenberg uncertainty issue. I guess you could say. The double slit experiment. I apologize. A lot of people get those things confused, and I just did at the moment. When you're talking about the double slit,
quantum physicist.
Well,
I'm fucking around. Most quantum physicists are bad at it, hilariously enough.
It's 10:30 p.m. my time, and
Yeah.
I'm not only not a quantum physicist. Like, seriously, if I wanted to find a physicist, I'd walk downstairs and wake my stepdad up. I live in my parents' attic. But,
I have two more very brief questions. The first is the more relevant. Have either of you read the Communist Manifesto?
Yes.
I've read parts of it. He's read it in its entirety. I've read much more of Kropotkin, and that's simply thanks to Red throwing bread memes at me until I caved.
Bread lines are a wonderful thing.
No, not
that
bread
means people are eating.
Bread
it's
memes.
bread. It's bread. You know what bread memes are a wonderful thing. Okay.
There is a
By the way, I'm quoting Bernie Sanders.
It's not a Bernie Sanders meme joke. It's literally, there is a book called The Conquest of Bread.
Sounds horrible.
And it's an anarcho-communist book.
Fucking
sounds
what?
Like it sounds like there'd be way too many pigeons.
It's actually it's a really there's a lot of left-wing memes about it, and it's why, as a joke, you'll see Red and I exchanging bread emojis on a regular basis.
Horrible communisms.
I mean, honestly, when you and I started having this fight, I was like, I actually went to Red, and I'm like, so apparently I need to somehow sign up to join the evil transgender communist agenda, even though I'm neither trans nor a communist.
That just sounds
some bread
awkward.
Emojis.
All right. The final question of the question and answer session comes from Minty Fox, and it is: do you know that way?
I do not know the way. Will you show me the way?
You must show him the way.
I will show you the way.
Okay.
Show me the way. One of the people in my tribe on Ark actually has that fucking Knuckles thing as their avatar on Xbox Live.
God fucking damn it.
And there's an entire tribe there's an entire tribe in this server that I'm on called The Way.
God damn it.
And all they fucking do is post The Way comments and shit like that. That's all they fucking do.
Okay.
It's my response to that is, I am reminded strongly of the chat memes that came out of the stream that Shareview did with Bunty King and Boss Champs, where people decided that Boss Champs was now the commander and knew the way. So apparently he knows the way.
Who killed Captain Alex? Who killed him? I must know. Kung Fu!
He's agreeable Black Lives Matter person I've ever spoken to.
Hey,
and
real
apparently
quick, Total Madness, I agree with you absolutely.
Samantha Bee is one of the worst things ever for Democrats. But let's be honest.
No, I'm not a fan of Samantha Bee.
No, let's be honest.
Oh my gosh.
They have somebody named Nancy Pelosi in their party, and she's a horrible person.
As someone who's left of center, I would sooner take Nancy Pelosi over Samantha Bee or Hillary Clinton.
Wait. So you take somebody that walked in a parade with the North American Man-Boy Love Association?
She may not.
She knows what they are.
Fuck.
She knows what they are.
This sounds like a completely different debate.
I'm sorry. I need to host a stream one day that is just Democrats are bad. Please disagree with me.
It sounds like a fucking plan, by God.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's wrap it up with final thoughts. And you guys think you'll still be able to be friends after this discussion, now that you guys know each other's point of view?
Actually, we never discussed the main contention, honestly.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, back to the main contention then. We'll finish up later.
All right, well, let me say this much. The main contention, I would say, is that she is not willing to separate communism, which is inherently a view, and I'm talking about Karl Marx communism, that requires an entire nation, whether that nation be anarchist nation, okay, because the end goal of communism is anarchy. It is. If you read the Communist Manifesto, that's the end goal.
I don't think so necessarily from Marx's view. Marx was definitely a statist.
No, Marx's point of view, let me explain this. Marx's point of view was that the proletariat have been basically brainwashed for so long that what you're going to need to do is get an enlightened individual or group of individuals to control them in government, and then spread this enlightenment through education and government policies. And then eventually, whenever the proletariat's culture has become enlightened enough, then you relinquish the government's existence to the proletariat. Because then, hilariously enough, in a way, much like a meme amongst people as Richard Dawkins had described it, all right, they would end up acting in the same way that a quote-unquote good communist government would, where the proletariat control things, there's no private ownership of things, everybody works for the benefit of everybody. That's what he wanted. The problem with that ideology is, one, people suck. No human being will ever work when you can just give them food for free. Well, that's not true. 90% of people won't. 90% of people won't. Okay? Most people will not work when you give them free shit.
Okay, well, are you... Can I respond yet or not?
Well, okay, well, let me say this much. And my problem is that you're conflating that, which is communism. That is communism. Communism cannot be separated from that ideology, with the idea of communalism, which has been around a lot longer than communism. Communalism is a small, isolated community with an emphasis on the betterment of the community. And I will admit, it acts in a quote-unquote communist manner. The main difference here is that communism requires the entire state or world to participate in this government. Communalism only requires the small community. Before I hand the table to you, floor, thingy, whatever, I will bring up a great example, old Catholic monasteries in Europe with the monks that wore the brown shit. Okay? They were
the brown ones are
communalist.
Specifically, you're thinking of Franciscans specifically.
Right, but they were communalist. Every monk farmed, labored, built, and were architects and all this other stuff. They all ate from what the farmers made, and the farmers all slept in the houses that the architects built. They all worked together in their small community so that everybody had enough to live, read the Bible, and be kind of annoying.
I love that you threw in that last one.
All right, so Bridge.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack and respond to there. The first thing I would say is that quote from Karl Marx that you came up with, oddly enough, reminds me of some of the more arrogant quotes of Thomas Jefferson, which, in my darker moments, I have to admit that I can see Jefferson's point on this, which is that the American system, as it was set up by the Founding Fathers, is set up for disaster if the public is too poorly educated, which
idiocracy.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so the idea of cultural elitists trying to say that on the other side the general populace is too stupid to know what's good for them is, a long and storied one, and it has some basis in fact and some basis in not, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Oh no, en masse people can be retarded. They're like buffaloes. They're like buffaloes.
I mean, but
you
the
can't.
Thing is,
it's hard to hunt a single buffalo. It's easy to hunt 1,000.
The problem is really the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is that the people who know enough to actually know about a topic usually assume that everybody else understands it. The people who don't know enough to understand that they don't understand it. And there's usually like a midpoint where people kind of realize, how much they don't know about a specific topic, where it's like they learn a little about it, only enough to go, oh, wow, I really don't know enough about this. But the fact is, it's like, people either over or underestimate their actual knowledge, and that leads to a world of bad quite often. I'm like, for example, I think with the Dunning-Kruger effect, for example, it certainly applies to if you and I were to try to discuss evolution, because I am in the thing where I'd have to pore over all of my textbooks, because I am in the Dunning-Kruger space of I know enough to know how much I don't know. I have a loose idea of where to go for the right information, but I know enough to know how much I don't know. However, I also know enough to know that it's vastly more than some of the stuff that you were pulling up. So I know that the answers are out there, and I know that they're more than what you were putting up, but you present yourself like you're an authority on the subject and like you've researched it really well.
No, I don't care about individual forms of evolution, like, let's say, evolution into a bird. I like to study the issues that exist with the overall way the theory works. I'll admit, I'm not an expert on any individual evolutionary line, but I have studied enough to know that there are issues with how evolution, the theory, currently works.
Well, but the thing is until you've actually studied genetics and have an understanding of...
Oh, that I have studied. You don't need to study evolutionary lines to understand genetics.
Okay, I have a friend who actually works with deadly bacteria on a daily basis and prevents plant diseases from wiping out every tree in North America, among other things. That's one of the things that her lab has done, because there was a plant disease that was doing that they stopped. It started in Florida, and it started killing off literally all of the trees. It was starting to jump species, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but
sounds like a communist.
I mean, she was working for the federal government, but no, she's not a communist.
No, the disease sounds like a communist. It kills everything.
I'm not going to.
So,
Stalinist, I guess would be. Okay.
You guys seem to get along really well, and where you may have a disagreement in this particular topic, you guys still bounce off each other. There's a chemistry there that is something that you should preserve.
I just want her to realize that there is a big difference between small community governments that act in a communist manner and actual communism. If you don't realize that, then I have to be suspicious that you are either ignorant or you're a communist apologist.
Here's the thing. If you get past semantics, the way I would say what I think you're trying to get at there is a difference between authoritarian communism and anarcho-communism.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
The problem there is that one, anarcho-communism would require a vast amount of area the size of a minimum state to work. And this is even if the numbers were perfect. Because you cannot have, for example, in a small community, enough resources for everybody to go good. You need oil, you need metals, you need food, you need raw resources like wood, and you can't get all of those things in one area that isn't at least the size of the state of Texas. All right?
Okay,
that is a nation.
what I'm gathering here is you just want her to admit that there's a difference between communism as applied to a widespread area and a communal understanding.
Communalism
Yeah,
is
a
what I would
communal
call it.
understanding.
And I
That's
understand that the
want.
dictionary says communalism is the same as communism under the
Yes,
fourth
it's definition
synonym for it, but
yes.
it's wrong. It's wrong.
Well, you're arguing that the dictionary is wrong, though, which is something that most of Tumblr does, because the Tumblr thinks dictionaries were written by white people who hate Ebonics.
Okay,
right. But my argument for why it's wrong is an educational one. It's an actual intellectual reason.
So
the dictionary on this issue is wrong.
Dictionary on this.
Well, the dictionaries can be wrong because they're written by people. People are faulty and people are dumb sometimes.
Yes, but you have to go from the same operational definition of words in order to have a productive conversation in the first place. And so I usually consider the dictionary as the proper place to go.
Okay, so what we're saying is this is entirely a concept. Like, this entire argument is based on you not agreeing on a definition. Can you use
not
another
even that.
word?
I'm wanting her to realize that small communities that act in a communist manner are not the same as an actual communist nation.
So like a small community that applies communist, let's say, philosophy is not the same as a communist government. Basically.
What if it was a country that was formed entirely of local living economies? Then what would you say?
Then they wouldn't be communist, because in order to survive, they would need some form of capitalism.
Well, okay, but here's the other thing, too, where you and I got into it before, which is that you're defining capitalism also differently. Because when I looked in the dictionary, the other thing that came up was capitalism as the ownership is entirely through corporations or private individuals. And you were trying to argue, for example, that things like a co-op run business is still capitalist. It's still free market.
No, my issue there is that, look, I don't think you've said this before, and it's an absolute straw man of what I believe, and it really is. Okay, you said that I think capitalism is this perfect system that works wonderfully and is great. No, I don't believe that. I think if that was true, then I would be an anarcho-capitalist. I don't believe that at all. I think anarcho-capitalist is about as stupid as communism, except that it doesn't inherently require genocide. It just ends up accidentally murdering people.
I'm so proud that you admitted that. I'm so proud you admitted that. Thank you.
No, I've always said that. I always have. You've never listened to it.
That's why I was going with my.
It just accidentally murders people.
Okay,
that's the issue there.
Hang on. Let's scroll back to this concept of a co-op. What do you mean by a co-op?
Union-owned businesses would be a great way for you to understand it. And I would say they're not inherently communist, because at that point, the issue there is that communist businesses are owned by everybody. Union-owned businesses are owned by a small group of people that work for that business and own it at the same time. But real quick, as a side note, if you ever worked in a co-op, you know they're not actual union-owned. Okay? Let me just say that.
So,
well, there's other ways that people are doing it other than just unions. But anyway,
all right, let's get into this. So the co-op is owned by a union.
The way I was trying to understand it wasn't even just that it was a workers' union. There is a business model where basically when you are employed by the company, you also at the same time become an investor in that company.
Okay, it's a bullshit marketing scheme.
Okay, yeah, fair, but okay, so when you become hired by this company, you become an investor and thus a partial owner, right?
Correct. And actually, when people
investors that are part of it, they have some minor ownership in that company.
Correct.
Investors are private individuals, right?
I believe that in the movie Juno, that guy worked in a co-op and he fucking hated it.
Okay. So
while investors
are private individuals that become the investors.
Right, but it's not a
but that's not communist at all.
At the top.
No, that's capitalism.
No, that is it's an amalgamation of capitalism
when you're talking
and
about
group interest. It's not entirely capitalist in the sense that one person owns it, in which you would see anarcho-capitalist.
You just
but it is
admitted that it's not
capitalist.
entirely capitalist. Thank you. That's at least a start.
No, I've always said
not
that. I've always said that.
But it's a business owned by private citizens attempting to make a profit off their labor. That's
but there's a difference between capital in terms of, I mean, one of the things that I think a lot of these people, including Red, tend to make a criticism of is the idea that there is literally a capitalist class. There are who skate around investing in businesses, investing in property without ever actually putting in a day's work. And I think that's actually what infuriates a lot of my friends who are on that side of things is there are people who work their butts off day after day, pushing like 60, 80 hours a week for like crap pay. And
they should get another job or have better skills.
Some of them are really highly skilled workers and they still get crap pay.
Well, then they're dumb.
No, a lot of them have college degrees. Well, and I know you're going to say that the
dumbest people I've ever known have Thomas degrees. Need I say Nancy Pelosi again?
Let's not with the, well, but she makes a lot of money, and she, doesn't work as hard as some of these people who are out there.
She's also probably mentally retarded.
Okay, hang on. Where I'm going with this is just that there are.
I'm mostly just fucking with you at this point, to be honest.
There are people. There are people who work very hard who don't.
Jesus,
Hello.
Who is Trucker? You're echoing us all.
Holy shit!
What the fuck just happened?
I don't know, but it's super loud.
We're playing twice on your speaker.
Oh, I think he's got it.
Yeah, I literally didn't hear anything at all.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, no, it's you got it fixed. It's fine. God damn it! I had a point.
Can you can't hear me now?
No, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. For a second there, you just like spiked our audio up with you, so that just blew out my ears for a second.
Literally nothing happened. I don't know.
We're still sort of echoing in yours, but you turned us down.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the topic at hand here.
Is that Miss Steam?
Where?
Yeah, baby boomers suck because they never retire.
The thing about somebody who has a shit-paying job, but they're a very skilled worker, is they accepted a job with shit pay.
Well, the problem is that the problem is that too often those are the only jobs that are out there.
Let me say this much. You've heard my position on a lot of things. You've heard my position on this, and I will say this a million times. If somebody starves to death because they took a shitty job at a shitty place that doesn't pay them enough, that's their own fault.
Well, but then the other option is that they don't take any job because they're wind up. Like, I mean, you take
the other
next to nothing
option
as
is that
to
they
the
don't be an
nothing.
idiot and get a job that actually pays.
Try negotiating for one with high skills. I dare you, because they don't take anybody at this point.
Let me say this, okay? I'll be completely honest. I have very minimal skills. I know how to be a semi-driver, and I know how to be a commercial fisherman, and I can do some carpentry. That's about it. All these jobs, for the most part, don't really pay that great. But
and a lot of them are getting automated.
Yeah, well, it's not as quickly as you think. Okay? And the thing is, I make more money than some scientist. Okay? If you're a scientist, you have a PhD, and you make less money than a trucker, you have to be an absolute moron as far as negotiation and ability to realize where your value is. You really do. At which point, that's your own fucking fault.
Yeah.
Or it's also things like, unfortunately, far too much of the money is in doing things like developing mass weapons of war, which, some people might take a moral objection to.
I am all for atomic weapons.
Others might take a moral... I didn't say atomic weapons. I said mass weapons of war, like things like bioweapons, even. Might
Depends on if
thing.
you can control it. No, I'm kidding. Only if you can cause the zombie apocalypse, at which point I'm down. Please do.
I guess what
I have a foolproof plan, and if it doesn't work, I'll blow my brains out before I turn.
But then you'd still turn as a zombie because you'd died.
But he's got no
not
brain.
if you don't have a brain.
I think it's that they eat brains. They still have. They don't necessarily have to have brains to be a zombie.
Depends on which type of zombies you're talking about. There are not George A. Romero. Who's the other guy? Who's the other guy? The OG zombie movies. There's George A. Romero and the other guy.
I'm actually related to somebody who made an indie film zombie movie. So are we really going here?
Wait, no. There's Ichabod. You're probably old enough to remember. Who's the other guy besides George A. Romero who made the OG zombie movies?
Oh, shit. It was George Romero and, what the fuck was his name?
He had the movie with the zombies that, no matter how much you destroyed them, unless you destroyed their entire body, they still chased after you. And this movie happened inside of a small city community, starting at the school, spreading outwards. And there was that one scene where the zombie ate all the police and paramedics. And then he grabbed the fucking radio and was like, "Send backup." You know the one I'm talking about, right?
I fucking actually don't. The only other director I can think of that did zombie movies like that, which are the voodoo zombies, would be
Would be what?
Victor Halperin.
Halperin? That's my godfather's name.
Well, you know, he fucking made a zombie movie in like the 1930s. So
was that like the moon zombies and shit?
It was voodoo zombies, but it was white zombie, I think is what it was called.
Very different, whatever. But the thing is that for zombies to work, they would have to have a working brain. Because, I mean, let's all be scientific here. Of course they would. So I have a foolproof plan. If that doesn't work, I'm blowing my brains out.
Okay, well, I mean, all I can say, Trucker, is as far as the other stuff is, if it's sufficient for you, I am anti-Stalinist. I am not a communist. I think Stalin's entire whole shtick with the USSR was pretty freaking evil. I'm a huge, huge fan of the YouTube video, The History of the Soviet Union, set to the music of Tetris, which if you haven't seen it,
that was wonderful.
Should.
You sent it to me. But no, my problem is that you're conflating communalism with communism. They're very different.
Except to me, they're part of the definition of the same thing. And that's a semantics game, and you know it. Come on.
No, I agree with you. It is a semantics game. My problem is with people that are playing the semantics game and won't clearly define things as different.
I have defined for you the definition I am using. You're the one who's insisting that the semantics matter enough that you're willing to cancel a friendship over it.
Look, I mean, I don't know.
I've established
I think there is enough.
I am a hippie. In fact,
I think there is enough factual scientist, not scientist. I think there is enough factual.
This is my tie-dye shirt, and my drum circle drum is in this bag. Okay. There is my hippie.
She also has a pussy hat.
One at a time. Fuck.
I knit that as a tea cozy.
Okay. Trucker, go.
All right. My problem is that I have brought up enough facts and accurate statements about what communalism is. Communalism has existed long before communism in many communities, okay? And it had a clear defined line, okay? Communism also has a clear defined line as laid out by the guy who created it.
I would sit there and argue that communism wasn't fully invented by Karl Marx, for one.
Okay. So what this is an argument about semantics. Can you, Bridge, can you say, look, governmental communism is bad, but in a very small community, it works?
I mean...
Gotta give a little ground to get a little ground. Come on. Governmental communism, like applying it to a massive...
That's relatively, I would have said as statist. Yeah.
Okay, so it's bad.
Oh God! Now Freedom Tunes is gonna show up and start bitching.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Why is that?
I like
Not Freedom
Anyway.
Tunes. Oh Lord.
So, yeah. So,
I love his videos. They're so great.
Governmental.
I like the side comment.
I like the side comment here. Should I
sacrifice
my freedom
or my freedom
to get the monies?
I have definitely felt like I have done both
in my life.
No, real quick. It depends by what do you mean health? Will your ass and or pussy be taking a pounding?
Oh jeez. Oh jeez.
Okay.
I'm a libertarian, so go for it.
All right. So back to what I was saying. So can you agree to that, Bridge? That. God damn it!
It's relative.
The fuck was that?
That's the fucking Streamlabs. It scares the fuck out of me every time. Oh, I just pee a little.
Really?
It fucking straight makes me jump about 1 billion miles in the fucking air because I have to use voice meter. So you guys are really fucking loud to me, and that thing is about twice as loud as you.
Oh,
so it's just like, guess what? Fuck you!
Ear rape.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I
Now I'm wondering what results that would pull up on Pornhub.
I can mostly. I mean, that's relatively close to a position that I can.
Wait, let me restate
on.
it this way:
Oh,
large scale communist doctrine.
It depends on. Oh, okay, let me state it this way. When I think of talking about large scale, I think of something like we were talking about the kibbutz system in Israel. I am thinking of it in terms of Lego blocks. So, for example, you use
but Bridge, hang on. We're not talking about like small scale. We're talking large scale communism.
Okay, I know.
Good or bad?
When you're talking about the
No, on a large state or nationwide scale where everyone in this nation is a communist. Would it work?
I figured out an analogy to say where my hesitation on this is. So if you can just bear with me, hang on. My analogy is that the only way in which you could get it to work at a large scale is if you took several of the small scales, like Lego blocks, and put them together. So, for example, in Israel, where a lot of a good chunk of the system is a bunch of little kibbutzes put together, then that makes a big thing.
I have to point out the fact that I'm banned from Israel.
Why the fuck are you banned from Israel?
Because I hung out with Andy Worski one too many times.
Wait, will that actually get you banned from Israel?
No, it won't. It's a joke.
Damn.
But anyway,
I love Israel, by the way. I hope they destroy Iran.
Oh God!
Anyway,
not on.
Moving on.
Yeah, let's not go on the trucker's fetish for nuking Iran.
Overall, that would still be several small communist communities working together.
Right.
Not even working together; they're clearly isolated.
Yeah, isolated themselves,
I wouldn't necessarily say isolated because they do work together to make a larger whole. In the same way, okay, let me put it this way. As a hypothetical, since trucker has such a big thing for European Christianity, if hypothetically speaking,
not even European, Arabic Christianity is fucking wonderful.
If you had
except that guy that ate a Muslim's heart, that's kind of fucked up.
Anyway,
if you had an entire country that was composed of little monastic-like Catholic communities, including, like, say, third-order lay communities, because that's a thing in the Catholic Church, even though that's now being debated for some reason, thanks to Pope Francis and post-Vatican II mess. Anyway.
Wait, is that the new Pope? Is that the current Pope?
Yeah. But
he's ruining Catholicism.
Anyway.
I have some points where I agree with him and some points where I disagree with him, and frankly, I've just kind of given up on following it over the last 2 years. So I remember what he did in the first 2 years, and I didn't mind most of that, but some of what I've heard since then. Anyway,
let me rephrase the question again.
Hang on. Historically, if you had an entire country that was somehow formed of these smaller Catholic communities, do I think that would work as an entire country where all of these communities were working together? Yeah. And that would be large scale. And that's the sort of thing that I think would be okay large scale, not Stalinism. Can we, is that enough for you?
But that's that's just a bunch of little communities. That's not communism. Are you willing to say that?
But it's little communities working together to make something bigger.
All right. So here's my question to kind of hammer this home. Let's say Stalin, Marx, their ideas of communism, bad, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Inherently genocidal.
Maybe their specific form of that ideology, that is maybe inherently genocidal.
And any form of communist doctrine that's based on the economic ideas of Karl Marx.
Do you agree with Marxism, Bridge?
No. And I've said this to him several times. I don't know.
There we go. Problem is fucking solved. She doesn't believe in Marxism. Marxism's bad. Okay. Small
whatever. I'm good.
There. Yeah. So we've got a working friendship here.
All right. Next question. Next question. I got a question.
Does it have to do with where you can find your local chapter of Black Guns Matter?
Well, I'll do that research on my own. And then we'll pick up a black chick from there. But no. This is a question for the chat.
Oh Jesus.
Should we get rid of Iran?
Oh God! This means total nuclear annihilation. I should throw in. He wants to nuke Iran.
No, I'm good with
you said that
carpet Moab. I'm good with carpet Moab bombing.
I mean, yeah, that does make it to where the
Trucker, congratulations! You're making me cross myself like a Catholic.
The area is still usable. Total Madness says, "Remove Iran now."
Where did I put my rosary? Like the longer
all right, Total Madness. Follow me on Twitter. I will follow you back.
Where did I put my rosary?
Garbage Human PJM64 says, "Screw Iran." Total Madness says, "Give it the California treatment and let the Earth swallow it whole."
Oh, Red left because she's having a conversation with a trans porn star on her channel.
Oh, for fuck. No.
No, I agree with Ichabod here. I'm avoiding that.
Total Madness does not have a Twitter. So, at this time...
Hey, Trucker, I found my ultimate abomination, my tie-dye rosary.
Oh,
that just sounds like an oxymoron.
That just was there anal beads with a cross on it.
Indeed. Was there plentiful amounts of acid involved in this?
No, but it actually has full color Catholic medals tied to it.
Why?
I have no idea what that means. Let me just say I have no idea what that means. I was raised a Baptist.
Do I want to know?
You don't want to know. Go ahead now.
Here. This is the cross piece. If I can find it, I put it against my tie-dye shirt there.
I hear your fucking cat.
You put it against your boobs.
Yeah. Tie-dye beads.
All right, so it seems as though we've more or less got this figured out, right?
Like St. Anthony and Joan of Arc and stuff.
You two are cool, right? More or less.
Sure.
Cool. You get cool with each other now. You're gonna be cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys got an agreement working. Just don't try to argue the pros of communism with him, and don't try to argue the antis of communism with her, and you guys will get along just fine.
Basically.
By the way, just a quick aside. Ichabod.
Stalinism memes we could agree on that bash Karl Marx.
Ichabod, real quick, as a quick aside, yeah. Ichabod. If you know of or ever hosting a debate that involves atheism, I will take up the pro-God side, and you'll fucking love it.
Jesus fucking Christ. Maybe sometime.
Oh Lord!
If you can find somebody to debate with you about it, I will host it.
Oh Jesus!
Tim
I don't know if
Huggins
that's a good plan or a bad one.
and all the people on the fucking.
Oh no, you gotta ask them. They can come on, but you got to be the one to get them to agree to it.
Actually, I'm currently trying to get my dad to debate an atheist on one of these streams. Because, look, I'm pretty good at debating atheists. My dad is fucking phenomenal.
Oh Lord! I feel like I would need to borrow vodka from my communist friends for this.
All right, where's my helicopter?
Optimus Christ really wants you to go watch him play Fallout when this is over. Are you gonna do that?
I will do. I'll be playing Ark while watching you, but I will watch Optimus.
I'm actually tempted to go play Fallout myself.
Any final thoughts from you guys? Anything else you want to say?
Praise Doug.
Oh God, how about an anti-theist?
Oh, I think anti-theism is about the dumbest thing that ever existed. I can sympathize with just plain atheism, but anti-theism, no.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, so a debate for another day. So final thoughts from either of you guys. Anything else you want to say? Show your channel, that kind of shit.
Oh, I mean, I'm Bridge Building Heathen here on YouTube and Bridge Heathen on Twitter. And I swear I'm not... I'm not actually usually arguing that much of a left-wing perspective. In fact, I hide from my Tumblr friends in coming over here simply because they would think of me as the Kekistani shitlord, which is kind of hilarious. But there you go. Even being slightly not an SJW is sometimes, you know.
Until she talks to me, then she goes full SJW.
No, because I am anti-trigger warning. I am anti-safe space. Like, I mean, let's go down the list here. Like, I mean, you know, I think that what happened to Count Dankula was the most terrifying bullcrap ever.
It's my turn to shill.
Okay, I apologize. Go on, please shill.
By the way, Total Madness wants to send some shit to you.
Me?
That's fine. Just send it to. Okay. Oh shit! You can't send it to my Twitter. We'll talk later.
All right. So, my channel is Rekt Trucker, REKTRUCKER. I haven't put up videos in quite a while. The comedy is fucking terrible because I'm terrible at writing jokes. I'm great at on-the-spot jokes, but I think it's great. What else was I going to say?
Your Twitter.
Oh yeah, Twitter. I have two Twitters. One is just Rekt Trucker. No, one is Reckless Trucker. Rekt Trucker or Reckless?
There you go. It's Reckless, I think. One of them, the handle is Reckless Fake Theist Trucker.
No, I'm sorry, Rekt Trucker. that was my Xbox Live account. I am drunk.
Ah, there you go. would you like me to help
Reckless
you
Trucker. Reckless Trucker is my YouTube account. Reckless Trucker is also my Twitter. And Reckless Trucker Alt is my backup Twitter because I've gotten kicked off a few times.
Yeah, your @ handle on your main Twitter is unfortunately CJ Henry 4991.
No. That is my alt account. That's Reckless Trucker Alt.
Okay, and then the other one is. Well, then you've misnamed some of these because the one that's labeled as Reckless. Is the
one Twitter account is
Reckless,
fine.
Yeah, Reckless Trucker, RECKLESS Trucker, just @ all in caps, and it's Reckless. Don't touch my 2A Trucker.
Fucking correct.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And your YouTube channel is linked off of that, so.
Yes, both YouTube channels will be linked in the description. They actually already are. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go to our lead out music. You guys can head out whenever you are ready to.
By the way, you have great taste in music except for every third track.
What was wrong with fucking Oh god, I don't remember what the hell it was.
It was that hardcore metal grunge one. It was fucking.
Oh, don't talk. Watch. Yeah, no, that's just. It's so people can bleed in. You're probably not gonna like the next one either, but yeah. So check these two out. They seem to be on pretty good ground now, and of course, if you like the stream, be sure to hit the dislike button so I know you motherfuckers are paying attention, not just clicking it for no reason.
I won't.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. I'm now going to turn on my other thingy, and then here's the music. It's going to be deafening, so heads up, you two.
All right. I'm sorry, I'm drunk.
Stop worrying about things I can't control. Stop worrying about dollars I don't know. Stop worrying about the things I cannot know. And sometimes it feels so good. Life don't matter if it feels for you. Don't matter if you're hard. Life don't matter if it feels for you. I used to worry about better things.
I really got to put a screen for like ending the show.
Stop worrying about the problems you should know. Stop feeling like my life is such a mess. Because the road that we in it, it's my time and I should live it. Oh.